Hey guys, Ender from Tier 1 here. The Battlefield 5 Alpha has ended here just a few days ago, and I got a lot of sweet clips that I wanted to share, and I figured I'd put together a video. Before we get started though, I want to let you know that this is presented by the EA Game Changers, and if you don't know much about the Game Changers or want to know more, click the link down in the video description and it'll take you to the Game Changers website. You can read up on them, and if you think you got what it takes or think you got something to offer, either way you can apply there. So with that out of the way, I want to start with the first video in the series, the user interface and gameplay, kind of what's under the hood, what to expect. Now, I've been playing Battlefield since Battlefield 2, skipped ahead over to Battlefield 3, 4, Hardline, 1, and now 5. And I can tell you from my experience, and you've probably seen it a lot, it feels a lot like Battlefield 3. In fact, I had a lot of that feel. It kept coming back to me the more I played it, and the more I kind of ran around there. It's kind of like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 1 had a baby, and it's Battlefield 5, and that I mean that in the best way possible. Probably one of the top 5 annoyances for me for BF1 was the atrocious load times, the atrocious, you remember back in the alpha and the beta, you would hit the pause button and the menus were real sluggish. But more so than anything, it was kind of joining on friends. I mean, we know it hasn't really worked right since at least I can remember in BF4. But even just joining a server that you knew you were going to be able to join, you would spend, minutes waiting for it to finally load you into where you could deploy. Now, I had a sudden thought yesterday, I think it was, to go in and to watch one of my video clips, and I posted that up on the Tier 1 Facebook and Twitter. But I did a raw clip, not sped up, not slowed down, nothing, of the time it took for me to click join server with the 5-second countdown. You see it there in the bottom corner, to when I could actually choose a place to deploy. Now in Battlefield 5 closed alpha, that's the alpha, it was 31 seconds. Now going to PS4, and I don't know how the load times vary. If I were to try BF1 on PC versus PS4, I don't know how similar they are. I can't imagine they're too much off, but I could be totally wrong. But BF1 was a minute, 31 seconds to date. Now, Battlefield 5 Alpha, 31 seconds. BF1, a minute 31. So hopefully that translates over onto PS4 or Xbox or wherever you may be. But that's a good sign. Very good sign. It was very snappy. It seems very polished. Going into the animations and stuff like that, they felt real good in Battlefield 5. They got a little bit repetitive and redundant when every time your character would run across a ammo pack or a health pack, they'd reach their hand out. I was like, what is he doing when I'm running, just, running down a hill or something? I'm like, what's going on? And then it dawned on me, I think that's what it was, is anytime you run over a health pack or an ammo pack, something like that. I did really enjoy the fact that you actually had to press, or hold X to, rearm, to reload. The same goes for planes, same goes for tanks. You actually had to find a resupply station. Soldiers, you could, obviously get them off your support, your medics. But, as far as vehicle play goes, you had to go back to your spawn if you're a plane, or you had to go over to a rearm station as a tank. And that actually brings up another point with the planes. As far as animations go, I wasn't really fond of the fact that you could just jump, and it didn't actually go through the whole animation sequence like you'd see in the heavy bombers on BF1, where you climb to the back of your plane, and you would just kind of pop into the back seat, and you could just shoot out the back and shoot a plane coming up behind you. I won't even go into that right now, but I think with as much animation and as much emphasis as DICE put on the animation, they're kind of selling themselves short on those planes as far as climbing into the back seat. Maybe it's not physically possible, but I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but it seemed like it was lacking there. Probably one of the most integral and core parts of Battlefield 5, or of any Battlefield game, that I picked up on real early on, was what I call, and what I've heard other people call, the tempo of the fight. Now, Battlefield 1, if you've played a lot of other titles, you know that it's real fast-paced run and gun. You remember people abused the slides. Well, we all know those guys, and then when they nerfed it, they complained. But Battlefield 5, you're not going to be sliding, or at least not nearly as much. Somebody said you could slide in the alpha, but I never figured out what the keybind was for that or how to do it. But overall, the objective sizes like the radius, the cap radius, seemed to be much bigger on the flags. And I think at one point or several times I was spending 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, maybe more, just fighting over one flag. That's cool. That's real cool. And you'll get the same experience just moving up. It's a lot more about tactics, a lot more about strategy, instead of who has the better hit registration, who can slide the most, who can fly around and spray bullets while spinning in 360s, no scoping, hip shotting, all that stuff. But it's a lot more squad tactic based, and I haven't really felt that at all since Battlefield 3. Going over just the general gunplay and hit registration, if you played Battlefield 3 and I compare it to Battlefield 3, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if not, an example would be in BF1, you notice that when somebody's running and you're leading your target and you fire, more often than not you're going to hit them. Now, that wasn't the case in BF3. It's not the case in Battlefield 5. It requires a lot more precision. You're going to spend a lot more time kind of squinting, looking for targets, and really concentrating on your aim, concentrating on how much burst fire you're doing or lack thereof to hit your target. So there's a lot more skill involved there, and it's nice. It brings it back to kind of that BF3 feel, and that's what I'm all about. So definitely a big plus there for Battlefield 5. Looping back to what I just said there about squinting for targets, one thing that kind of contradicts what I just said there is the whole spotting system. It's a lot like Incursions if you played it. If you haven't, maybe you could compare it to Rainbow Six Siege, something like that, where when you hit your spot button, you're not spotting for like actual targets. It's not going to lock on and pop a little Dorito over the target's head. You're actually dropping little pin drops around, spots around the map. And I mean, honestly, that's good for team play. One thing that might possibly be a better option is to allow planes and such to see that. Maybe just from squad leaders or something, see the pin drops. Maybe you'll add another element there for kind of like JTAC or something, where you could call in airstrikes and you would kind of build the whole team play that way. It would be way too much if you had, planes seeing every single player's pin drops there on their spots, but maybe just squad leaders. I think that could be a lot of fun. One thing I noticed with the auto spotting in Battlefield 5, and if you haven't seen it, basically how it works is you move your crosshairs over a target, or in this case, what I'm about to talk about is the general direction of the target. It would pop a little red indicator over the head, much like you'd find a Dorito in any other Battlefield game. I felt that this was a little bit too sensitive. Seemed like even from a non-ADS position, kind of like, your low ready position for your rifle, you're just running along, you would get a lot of little red bubbles popping up from the enemies that were just off in the distance. I think they could reduce the sensitivity of this and make it kind of a little bit more challenging to see enemies off in the distance. One thing I'm not going to knock too hard, because DICE said they're not done with the UI and don't be hypercritical of it and they're still working on it, is the whole hit indicator and the hit direction and the indicator of what direction you're getting shot from. I had a hard time telling what direction I was getting shot from. I don't know if that's in its final form, if it's going to be polished. Maybe it's just something I got to get used to, playing BF1 for so long and being used to the way it displays there. But for whatever reason, I just remember making a mental note that I had a real hard time telling what direction I was even being shot from. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that, and we'll get into the more in-depth stuff, the more specific stuff in other videos. Like I said, I'm going to do a little mini-series here, but all in all, I can tell you, fantastic. I think this one is going to bring back a lot of the Battlefield vets. I've seen other people say it. That was my initial impression. People who love Battlefield, 3, or I can't speak for Bad Company, Battlefield 2, but definitely Battlefield 3, you're going to probably see a lot of them back, which is super cool. Maybe I'll see some old friends. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Let me know if you want to see more of these videos, if you like them, if they're helpful, if they're not, if they're informative, if they're not. Don't forget to drop a sub or a like, share the video. Let me know maybe something else I could touch on. I don't mind doing them. Usually I do everything live. So this is kind of a new thing for me. So let me know, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks.